Welcome to Everyday Investor. My name's Nicole Edmonds, and I'm filling in today for BRRRR. We have a really interesting show lined up for you today. We have an investor who's from Canada who's investing in rental property in the United States. We're going to learn all about how he was able to acquire a large portfolio of properties with this strategy and how you can too. Grab your pen and paper and don't go anywhere. Everyday Investor begins in a moment. Coming up, Anil Walia teaches us how our money can make us money investing in the US.
You see, I always wanted to have some time for myself, for my family, friends and relatives, and also, to do something of my own. So I thought if I can create a source of passive income and, build wealth, so I realized real estate is the way to go.
Everyday Investor is brought to you by ProFunds Mortgages, fixed returns, real security. Clover Properties Rent to Own, invest with a purpose. Sam McDaddy Real Estate, full service brokerage for all your buying, selling, and investing needs. Welcome back to Everyday Investor. I'm Nicole Edmonds, filling in today for BRRRR. Today we're going to be talking about how we can make money investing in the US as Canadians. We've got a guest on the show who's an expert on the topic. And remember, before ever getting involved in any investment opportunity, you always want to ask the 4 questions before you get involved. 1, what is the return on investment? 2, when do I get that return along with the money I put in? 3, what is the minimum cash amount needed? And 4, what is the risk in the worst case scenario? We have Anil Walia on the show with us. Anil, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for calling me.
And Anil, you're no stranger to the Everyday Investor. You've been on the show before.
That's true.
And I'm always so impressed because every time when I ask you, okay, Anil, what property are you at now? You always blow me away with your new number. So what property number are you at now?
I'm 79, 80th property I'm closing end of this week.
Oh my goodness. And so when I hear 80 properties, I think, oh my gosh, he must have been doing this for a really long time. But you didn't start all that long ago.
Yeah, no, I bought my first property in January 2012.
Okay.
So it's about 7 years.
7 years, and you've been able to acquire all those properties.
Yes.
Wow. So over 10 properties a year. And what led you to getting involved? Like what brought you to getting involved investing and also investing in the United States?
You see, I always wanted to have some time for myself, for my family, friends and relatives, and also, to do something of my own. So I thought if I can create a source of passive income and, build wealth, so I realized real estate is the way to go.
Yeah.
And in order to make a good portfolio, which gives you positive cash flow, you have to do a lot of analysis and find out the right place and the right neighborhood, right country. So when I did all that analysis way back in 2009 to 2012, US real estate was melting because of a financial meltdown there. Though there was nothing wrong with the real estate, the problem was in the financial sector. So I knew that is the right place to go and invest. You see, the first principle says in real estate that you buy real estate in your backyard. But the second principle says you buy real estate which cash flows positively.
Yeah, investment returns are best, right? We hear that a lot.
So because the US real estate was in a much better returns, so I went to US.
So you said 2009 to 2012. So you spent 3 years, and that's before you even started purchasing?
Absolutely. Because I come from India and I was an immigrant and I was a retired military commander, I had no business sense. And I was very, very scared to touch my money, to put it into the investment. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to make sure that whatever I invest, it is totally safe. I was not as concerned with the returns as with the safety of the investment. So it is for this reason I decided to learn and gain knowledge before I invested.
Okay, and so what did that look like? Like, how did you decide where to go and what to start researching? What was that whole education process for you?
Yeah, you see, I did consult some mentors, so I realized that I got to understand the markets myself. So it is at that time I decided to visit US, and I visited around 10 towns, 10 cities, and every city I spent 5 to 7 days, where I moved around with a realtor. I understood the markets, and I realized in US is such a big country that every state is a market by itself. Each market is different from the other state. And at that time, I realized there were 3 trophy markets in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, and Phoenix. And I decided on Orlando.
You said Las Vegas, Orlando, and Phoenix, and then honed in on Orlando. What were you seeing in those markets that you weren't seeing elsewhere, or maybe weren't seeing in Canada as well?
Yeah, you see, one basic difference was these 3 markets had peaked the maximum in 2008. And when the recession came, they are the ones which went down the most. So I knew that these are the markets which will come up again because there was nothing wrong with the real estate. The problem was in the finance sector. So this was an opportunity for investors to grab properties at 50% of the price, and they will come back to the same levels for the same reason they went up for the first time, because these are sun-shining states, especially Florida, sun-shining state, and there's a lot of positive migration into this state taking place. Even now, if you see, this was Florida way back in 2012 was the 4th largest state, but now it has become 3rd largest state. A lot of people from New York are moving in, from California people are moving in. This is the motto there is, cheap and cheerful real estate. This.
Okay, and you were also talking there just about the market had dropped so much at that time, but these properties that you're investing in are rental properties, is that right?
Yeah, they are all rental properties. I buy them and then rent them.
And rent them. And so what were you seeing when it came to analyzing the market, and these properties went down, but was you said a lot of immigration, were there high rents to be able to kind of sustain good cash flowing properties? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, you see, my strategy is, you can abbreviate it as BRRRR, BRRRR.
Okay.
Buy, renovate, rent, and refinance.
Okay.
So the as the saying goes, the maximum money is made at the time of buying. So one has to be very careful in buying at the time of buying. So you must buy in a place where there is a job growth, where there is more demand and less availability of the product, and the population growth is there. So Orlando meets all these requirements. So you must buy in that area where these predominant requirements are met, and then you concentrate on your product. So once you go to the general area, then you concentrate on your product. The best product is 3-bedroom, 2-washroom, single-family homes, 1,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet. These properties are bread and butter properties. They can get rented fast. They are easy to sell, easy to handle. So these properties, once you select this product, you look for this product. This product is available from various sources. So you must know what are those sources. From those sources, so we have to buy below market value. So once you know the sources, then look for from where you can get below market value. And even since we are buying properties which are second hand and we have to renovate them, so those properties are sold in as-is condition. So all the purchase contracts are as-is. But still in as-is, you got to find a loophole. Like what I found, even on a firmed up contract, if you can find a loophole of mold or termites, you can further get some discounts.
The purchase price even further down.
Even further down, because these properties are being sold by banks or by housing, by HUD and government organizations. So they really don't visit the properties that carefully.
So they're listing as is, saying, okay, we know the property might not be great, but we don't want kind of the responsibility of that. And then you're going in and saying, yeah, but there's termites as well, so we want an additional.
Even for as is, they are bound to disclose that there is mold and termite. They don't disclose, so we can get some discounts. So this is how we make money at the time of buying.
Okay.
So once you buy a property, then you get it rented, get it renovated.
Yeah.
So for renovation, I have various contractors, and they also have standardized a kind of renovation product. If the house has carpets and wooden flooring, I try to, if they're fine, it's okay. But if they're due for change, I put them on tiles.
Okay.
All the houses are painted with Sherwin-Williams paints.
So yeah, because you're saying, I mean, with 80 properties in your portfolio, and they're all like, because you're still living in Canada, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're just doing them all kind of the same, like cookie cutter, and and then you can do them quickly and
Repeating
efficiently.
the same process every time. Yeah.
Because if it's not broken, why fix it?
Yeah.
And so that was something else I wanted to ask you. If you're living in Canada and you've got all these properties so far away, are you going all the time, or do you have a team set up there that you're coordinating with, or how are you managing that?
You see, this was the advantage of going through mentorship and learning. So now I know, sitting in Canada, how to analyze a property. I know all the websites, all the resources, which allow me in person to evaluate a property. I can assess a property. I can come to a purchase price that this property can be bought at this price. If I buy at this price, I can rent it at this price, and this is what it will give me. So one of my principles is to buy a property which gives you 1% of the rent, 1% of the purchase price as rent per month.
Okay.
So if it meets those criteria, then I tell my real estate agent to start processing.
Okay, so you're doing some vetting from your home in Canada before you're doing any
and I also know, looking at the state of the property, how much renovation is required and how much money is required for the renovation. So all those things put together, I can work out the numbers, and then I don't have to see a property.
Right.
So, but then my real estate agent goes, he reconfirms, they send me a video, pictures and all that. Then I take a quote from the renovator. So I know more or less what is the state of the property before I, firm up on the contract.
And visit or anything.
So there is no requirement to see.
Well, lots of interesting stuff, Anil. We have to take a quick break, but more to learn on investing in the U.S. when we come back. Everyday Investor is brought to you by ProFunds Mortgages, fixed returns, real security. Clover Properties Rent to Own, invest with a purpose. Sam McDaddy Real Estate, full service brokerage for all your buying, selling, and investing needs. Welcome back to Everyday Investor. We've been talking with Anil Walia, who's a Canadian investor investing in the U.S. He's told us that he's now at his 80th property, so he's sharing a lot of great information. And Anil, right before we went to break, you were talking about this 1% rule, and then we kind of quickly wrapped it up. But I want you to talk a little bit more about what that is, what you're looking for, and what the 1% rule is.
Yeah, it's simple. If the property purchase price of the property is $100K, I must get $1,000 in rent every month.
Okay, so if the purchase price of a property is $100,000, you need, coming in from rent, $1,000 per month, because that's 1% of that purchase
That's
price.
1%.
Okay.
This will ensure that after paying out all the expenses of property management, insurance, property tax, and even mortgage, you will still be left with $100 to $300, $400 of cash flow, net cash flow.
Okay, and so this is like a quick rule of thumb, like you were saying, you would get that sent to you just from your computer, a quick rule of thumb to know that this property might actually cash flow.
Absolutely.
Once you rent everything out.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so, and you're talking about a purchase price of around $100,000. That, for a lot of people, is not anything close to what we're seeing in some other markets. But is that what you're seeing in the markets that you're investing in?
No, that's
in
true.
Orlando?
Yeah. This is the beauty of U.S. market. U.S. market got corrected in 2012, so that market is now balanced. But we are still able to find properties in the range of 100 to 125K.
Yeah.
And they still follow 1% rule.
Okay.
And I'm still picking up. I'm going to close my 80th property end of the week.
Okay, so with investing in the U.S., I'm sure there's some key differences versus if you're a Canadian investing in Canada. What are some of the differences when it comes to setting up a deal, like when it comes to financing and down payments and all that kind of thing? How does that work if you're investing in the U.S.?
You see, one of the major differences in U.S., it's very difficult to get the mortgages at the time of buying. So my strategy has been to buy a property, renovate it, rent it, and then go to the bank.
Okay.
So if you go to the bank at that time, the bank gives you 70% back.
Okay.
So if you start with $100,000, the property is appraised at say 120 or 125, so you will get 70% of that, and you will be ultimately left with 20, 25, 30,000 in the property, and balance all money comes back.
Okay, so when you're starting, you're putting in that whole $100,000 to purchase it, whatever the renovation cost is, and then you're getting that money back out kind of on the back end when you're doing the refinancing after the renovation.
You know, it's very essential. It is possible to buy 80 properties with finance in US, but Canada doesn't give. The funniest part is I went to the Canadian bank. I have a mortgage in the house, and there's so much equity still left in my Canadian house.
Yeah.
I told them to give me HELOC. They refused. They said, we can't finance you if you have more than 9 properties. Despite these properties being in US, the Canadian banks have refused me extending more credit on my house in Canada.
And are you running into that when you go to refinance properties in the US, or no?
In
it's
US,
no problem?
there's no problem. So this is a big difference in Canada and US. Canadian banks are very, very conservative. The US banks are entrepreneurship. You know, they are oriented towards investors. So they see the properties cash flowing and they give you the loans.
Which
it's a great difference.
So I do want to go through, you've brought a case study with you today. I do want to go through that. But just before we get into those numbers, when you're talking about 80 properties and putting in all the money yourself, how did you get the money to even start? Because at the very beginning, you were having to purchase these outright.
Yeah, you know, I started off way back in 2012 with a HELOC, that means line of credit on my property in Canada. So at that time, I got 440K. So I bought my first property for $180,000. It got rented at $1,800 in 15 days.
1% rule.
Yeah, and then I bought the second one, then I bought the third one, and my money was exhausted. And then I went around the banks. At that time, I had a lot of difficulty in getting those 3 financed, but one bank agreed, so they gave me the money. So I bought 3 more, then I bought 3 more, then I bought 3 more.
And you just kept rolling that.
Yeah.
And did you stay with that bank who then kept refinancing and refinancing?
No, the banks over there have been lending me only up to $1 million. So once I cross $1 million, they put a stop, then I go to the next bank.
Oh, wow.
So I have now developed enough repo with the banks.
Yeah.
So there are so many banks. There's one bank who is after me. Even now they want to finance me, and I said no. I want to enjoy life. I want to, want time for my family, for my friends. I want to roam around.
And if you're going to a different bank after $1 million, what's the, if you don't mind me asking, the value of the portfolio now?
Yeah, now this 80 properties are worth around 16 million US.
Wow, 16 million US. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go through the numbers so we can really see how this plays out, what kind of return on investment we can get with this strategy. So you've brought a property here. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about what property we're going to run the numbers on?
Yeah, this is in D-Land in Orlando. It's about 1 hour drive from the Orlando airport.
Okay.
It's in greater Orlando area.
And is it the typical, like you said, the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom?
It's a single family home, 3 bedroom, 3 washroom, 1,200 square feet.
Okay.
And 2001 built, not very old.
Okay, yeah. All right, so let's run through the numbers. So what was the purchase price of the property?
It's 100K.
100K?
Yeah.
Okay. And that you were putting all that in yourself, because as we just talked about, you're going to refinance it after the renovation. What were the closing costs?
$7,000.
$7,000. You said your strategy is to do a renovation, so there was also some cost to doing a renovation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
About $23,000 I spent on the renovation.
$23,000 on the renovation. So the total amount that you needed to take out of your pocket to get into this deal was?
$130,000.
$130,000. So that's adding those 3 numbers up.
Yeah.
Okay, and then once you've done your renovation, you've rented out the property, you're experiencing an annual cash flow, right?
Absolutely.
So you've got the rent coming in, paying all of your expenses, including any mortgage payment, and then you've got your leftover cash flow. So what's that cash flow per year?
That is $3,300.
$3,300, okay. And another way that we're making money is once you've got your mortgage, you're paying down some of that principal.
Absolutely.
And you're not actually paying it, your tenants are paying that down.
Yeah.
And what is that per year for this property?
$2,400.
$2,400. And your passive appreciation. So passive appreciation is the value of the property just naturally going up. What's that, are we calculating that per
because
year?
the property has been appraised at 160K. So we take 3% as nominal appreciation, which is $4,800.
Okay. So you purchased the property for the $100,000. You put in a renovation of, you said $23,000. and then you were able to reappraise and refinance the property at a higher value. And did you just say that was 160,000?
160,000.
And then you've got some forced appreciation from doing that renovation and increasing the value of the house. So what do we have that at?
30,000.
30,000. Okay. So when we add up all four ways that we're making money, so the cash flow, mortgage pay down, passive appreciation, and that forced appreciation, what is the total that we're making in that first year?
40,500.
40,500. And to figure out our return on investment, we're dividing that by the cash invested.
Yeah, $20,300.
$20,300. And now that's the equity that you took some money out of your pocket, but after you refinanced, you got money back, except for some had to stay in there.
Absolutely.
And then we've included those closing costs. That's how we got to that 20,300. So we're dividing that out. And what is our annual return on investment?
It's 200% for the first year.
200%.
For the first year.
Holy cow. For the first year, okay.
Because we have 30,000 as forced appreciation.
Right. Okay. So meaning that forced appreciation, we're not going to have that again in the second year. You've increased that value, and now that's done, that aspect. So then the rest that we're adding up, the other three, what will that give us in the year going forward? Or in the years going
51%.
Forward? 51%. Wow. So that's what you're experiencing with all these properties. You're getting that initial 200% return on investment, and then 51% every year after.
Yeah.
Wow.
Actually, we target 20 to 30%. That's the minimum. But so many times we cross these figures.
Wow, it's very impressive, Anil. Well, it's wonderful having you on the show, and I think there's so many more questions that we could ask you, so we'll have to have you back again. But thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you.
And thank you to our audience very much for tuning in. Whether you're watching on TV, watching online, or listening to our podcast, without you, we wouldn't have a show. For more information on the show or to become an Everyday Investor Insider for investment opportunities, tips, and advice, go to our website at everydayinvestor.com. We'll see you next week, same place, same time. Thanks very much for watching.